Today I want to talk about the reason why I became spiritual, why I chose this journey. Now, I've never been someone who's been a spiritual person, right? I, like most people, grew up in what you could say is, you know, the church, right? Um, I grew up around Christianity. I was one of those that was forced to go to church when I was younger, even though I was bored as hell. um, but all through that, though, I've never really accepted religion as um, like it has never been like something that really resonated with me. I did it because I didn't have much of a choice. Like I'm sure many people have, right? So, as a kid, um, every Sunday you were told, "Hey, put your clothes on, um, put your clothes on, go to grab your Bible and go to church," right? And being in church, I remember sometimes just falling asleep, and I'll be punished just for falling asleep. Now, no disrespect to no one who was very religious or anything, but I'm just giving my personal opinion on what I used to go through. Um, and even sometimes there will be times that the pastor will say, "Hey, um, no, for those of you that want to receive Jesus in their heart and come to the front of the church and pray for you and so forth." And you will see everybody starts, a few people start getting up and going to the front of the church, and you'll be like the only one sitting, sitting in the congregation, like, "No, I'm not trying to go up there." But then everybody's looking at you like, "Hey, are you the devil or what?" And you're like, "Ah, man, I gotta go up there." And but you go up there and pastor put their hands on your head and it prays for you, and and no, don't get me wrong. I believe in blessings, right? I believe in blessings, but not like how most people believe it. Um, and I'm gonna get into that later too. But as the pastor pray for you, and I tell you, "Hey, accept Jesus in your heart." And there were many instances of that where I had to go to church and I had to deal with that, and as a child growing up. But anyways, fast forward, you know, um, as an adult, I decided that, hey, I wasn't going to accept anything that I don't know, I didn't fully understand, right? So, and religion was one of those things. There was a lot of questions I had, like a lot of questions that just didn't make sense. But as a child, sometimes you're not really allowed to question some of these stuff, especially those who grew up in the certain black community like I did. Now, I'm sure other, community may be the same, but I'm just speaking personally that I know for most black cultures, for example, um, growing up, we were like, um, you're like, most black family tend to be like deeply, really, deeply into Christianity, right? Now, I know that's the same for people in different cultures as well, but I can speak of my experience as a black person, as a black child growing up, um, and being in that situation and having Christianity being pushed onto you, right? I think it's just for some people it does quite the opposite, and me being as an adult and not want to accept anything that was just put onto me, I've always had this sense of um just think just this sense of feeling that something is not right, right? But you were not sure about it. I wasn't sure about it, and it's kind of hard to explain, you know. But it's like when something is not right within you, but everybody's saying this is how it is, but it's not right, right? I'm sure some of you in the viewers may understand what I'm talking about, and that was my experience. Um, and it turns out that most of these stuff that I felt when I was a child, grew up, turned out to be true. quantum science is not proving some of that stuff. And I'm not gonna get into detail of some of those things, but that's for our next video. But as an adult right now, after looking into different beliefs and just exploring different beliefs and listening to different point of view, it was, to me, it was clear that I'm gonna say spirituality, but I do not like to call it spirituality, right? And but I say spirituality because that's what everybody knows it as, right? It's just a form of practicing, like spirituality, but I call it consciousness, right? So it's about being conscious and aware of your being, who you are, right? Consciousness of your surrounding, and conscious of the divine essence, conscious of that the divine is in everyone else, right? So I call it consciousness, but just for the sake of this video, I'm gonna call it spirituality, right? So spirituality, after looking at the other religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, and most people say Buddhism is a form of spirituality, but me personally, I never like to associate myself with one particular group, because I feel like when you associate yourself with one particular group, you're creating a sense of division, and I'm about unity, not division. And and the other practices I looked at was I looked at the Jewish. At one point I remember I wanted to become a Jew. That was a long time ago. And I'm sorry, when I said Jew, I didn't want to become a Jew. Sorry, for those of you who practice Judaism, please forgive me. I wanted to practice Judaism, and I realized that was not for me either, because there was also some form of separation. And the more I become conscious, the more I read, there was something in me that kept telling me that, hey, don't associate yourself with anything that promote division. And then when I look at most of these religions, I realized they all had the same thing in common. They all had division. Now, don't get me wrong. The religions, they always invite you, like say, hey, you can be a part of this religion with open arms, right? But at the same time, they will also promote division as okay, if you do this, that's wrong. This group of people, what they're doing is wrong, right? And in my opinion, I believe that, and most of you is going to probably find this very controversial, I believe that there's no such thing as wrong or right? So it's called dualism, right? I don't believe in a lot of dualism, right? Right or wrong, or like, don't get me wrong, there's a universal law that's called the law of dualism. That's not the one I'm referring to, right? I'm talking about, okay, this is right, this is wrong. And the reason why I say that is because everything has to come from intention. Everything must come from intention. What do I mean by intention is, if, for example, we say, okay, stealing is wrong, right? Yeah. And we put it in the law and say stealing is wrong, and if you do it, you go to jail. But at the same time, we do not factor in the intention of why did that person, or the situation of why that person stole, right? So here's an example, and I've always talked to my daughter about this, and these are the stuff I talk to her about, and because I try to get her out of that social programming, right? And because she's 8 and she goes to school, so she gets all of these formal education, right? So I try to make sure I balance that formal education with a sense of wisdom, intelligence. So I said to her, what did you learn at school? She says, hey, I learned that, stealing is wrong. So I said, okay, and you believe stealing is wrong? She says, yes, it's wrong. So I said, okay, what if something should ever happen where we become financially unstable, and you were hungry and you didn't have anything to eat, and I go out and I steal something, a loaf of bread, and I bring it back to you. I said, now, would you look at me as wrong? Would you like me as a bad person? She says, no, because you did it for me. So I said, but wait, but you just said stealing is wrong. Well, in that context, no. I said, exactly. And this is what I'm trying to explain to my, the viewers today, that, everything has to come from intention. And this is why I don't believe in the whole dualism, right? I believe everything is an experience and everything is done because in this world, we're all trying to survive, right? We're all trying to survive, and it's built in the human nature that we do whatever it takes for us to survive. It doesn't matter if you decide that, hey, you want to renounce everything in society, right? You're not going to work anymore. You said, oh, I don't want to have a house, I don't want a car, you just want to live on the street, right? There's something within us that says, hey, even though you want to do that, you still got to go out and eat, right? You still got to survive. And when we're in that situation and when someone has to survive, right, but they don't have the means to support themselves, they have no choice but to go out and support themselves because that's supporting the human instinct of survival, right? But then we will look at that person and says, hey, it's so wrong, right? And why am I talking about all of this? Anyways, right? The reason why I'm saying is this is that spirituality help to open your eyes on these things, make you see things differently, and not just, looking at someone and judging them or looking at an action that they do and just judging them, right? But it's opening up your eyes and understand that everything comes from intention. Now, that's just one of the examples of why I chose to do spiritualism. Now, in the sense of, and this is not to bash, this is not to say religion is bad or anything like that, because I really think religion do have its purpose in society. It provides a lot of, I think it does more good than bad, if you ask me. Now, some of y'all may disagree with that, but in my opinion, I think it does do more good than harm. Now, later I may change that opinion, but for now, based off my assessment, I think it does more good than bad. However, the issue with religion is that it promotes a sense of separation and it promotes a sense of superiority, right? And in the light of, the universe, we are all one. There's no sense of, there's no separation, right? We're one, right? Now, what separates us is our ego, right? And most of y'all, when I say the ego, it took me a while to understand this as well. When people talk about the ego, I was saying, no, I'm not an egoistic person. Now I was saying that I remember this one story. I remember this one girl I used to like, and every time I would try to take her out, and she would always refuse me. And then this one day, she's like, she really wanted to. She really took the time, and she's like, let me sit down with you and I'll talk to you. So we kind of had this small coffee date, not too big, right? And as I was, talking to her, she asked me this question, and this was a long time ago. I didn't adopt spirituality. She asked me, she's like, "Hey, what do you think about ego?" I said, "Ego?" I'm like, "Ego? I'm not an egoistic person. Like, I'm far from ego, man. I'm not an egoistic person." And she's like, "Yeah, but the ego. But what do you think about ego?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just told you, I'm not an egoistic person." So she's like, she went up and she's like, "Okay." I'm like, "What's that mean?" It's like, "Nothing." And after that, pretty much, I felt our energy just kind of changed a little bit. I'm like, "Yo, I just told I'm not an egoistic person. What's going on here?" Anyways, after the date, she was like, "Hey, I don't believe we're gonna be right for each other," and so forth. Fast forward now, as I start to become more spiritually developed, for the first, I start to realize what she was trying to ask me, right? That it had nothing to do with the typical ego that we think about, right? That what she was describing, what do I think about ego from a spiritual level? And even my wife, when I learned about what the ego was from a spiritual level, even my wife had the assumption that ego meant, oh, because if you're ego person means that you like to brag and you like to show off, right? And it has nothing to do with that. I mean, that's that's societal meaning of that, but in a spiritual term, it has nothing to do with that. Now, if you go to Google and or Chat GTP, if you prefer that, and like, hey, what is ego on um from a spiritual perspective, you will realize that. Sorry guys, it's getting loud here. Sorry guys, it's getting loud here. Somebody's doing some blowing stuff. Um, so if you ask what the ego is, sorry, I'm gonna cut this out for a second, guys, and then I come back to it. Hey, sorry about that, guys. I had to change my location a little bit because somebody was blowing leaf blower, so Lord was now noise was getting a little bit too unbearable. Anyways, hopefully they don't get by this area, or I may have to change location again. Anyways, as I was saying about the ego, so what the ego is, and if you don't know what the ego is, I recommend that you pick up the book Carl Jung, very good psychoanalysis, who wrote a couple of books. Really great, powerful writer. He talks about what the ego is, but to give you a brief description of what it is. So, what the ego is it's pretty much the material. It's like the material form, like this. What you're looking at, what you can feel, what you can touch. This is the ego, right? And the ego is pretty much, it's like the computer, right? So it's your programming that you have within you. Since you were born, you've been having these programmed, right? Through school, through society, through your parents, through friends, through television, through social media, right? So every day the ego is being programmed, right? What you see, what you learn, and the ego is it interacts with the world through the five senses, right? And again, this is my definition of what the ego is and what my understanding is, right? You may understand it differently. And what happened is that the ego, it it tried to self-preserve itself through fear, right? So fear is one of the favorite tools of the ego, and this is why you see in the news, fear is promoted more than positivity, and that is because it fear and desire is the two things that drives the ego to behavior, right? And the way it works is you have the way the ego is as you have the information. The information now cycles through the thoughts now creates the emotions, and then the emotions now creates the behavior, right? That's pretty much how the cycle works. And when in spirituality, it really gets you to understand the ego. And this is why when people talk about meditation and being mindful, it's about being mindful of the ego, right? So when they said your thoughts and your emotions, you're not your thoughts and your emotions, that's what it's talking about, right? Because the thoughts and the emotions is associated with the ego, right? Now, on a spiritual aspect, right, love is more associated with the spirit. Now, for most of you that didn't know, and I found this out in spirituality, which was the most powerful thing, right? When I say love, I think most of us still do not even understand what that word even means, right? Like that, it's a word for us, but love is a complicated emotions, right? In Sanskrit, which is one of my favorite things. Like I study Sanskrit a lot. I love Sanskrit, right? Because you get to the true um, meaning of things. And if you don't know what Sanskrit is spelled, Sanskrit, right? Sanskrit, right? This is the ancient Buddhist language that they study when you go to those Tibetan and you study in those ancient Buddhist temple, right? This is what they study. They call it the language of the gods. Um, so when you go through Sanskrit and you read Sanskrit and you understand what the meaning of love is, you realize that love has 13 different meaning, right? Now I'm saying love just for the English translation, but in Sanskrit it has 13 different names, right? It's not just love, that's it, right? Love is has turf that's there's 13 different types of love, right? One of the most primary one we've heard of is kama, right? Kama means the desire. It's like when you want to have a sexual relationship with somebody, like imminent, with no relationship attachment, right? This is why the word, if you heard of the word Kama Sutra, right? Kama Sutra is Sanskrit, right? And there is the whole Kama Sutra is written all in Sanskrit, and Kama Sutra has nothing to do with what the modern understanding of it is. Kama Sutra is like what we read in the books. People think of it's like it's a whole bunch of sexual positions, right? That's just 20% of it, right? The other 80% talks about the art of living, the duties of life, and so forth. So if you pick up the the translation of Kama Sutra that is taken from the real Sanskrit version, you will understand that it's 20% is of the it's about sexual position. The other 80% is of the duties of life, right? So when you really dive deep in spirituality, right, it really makes you understand like a lot of things. Understand about balances of the universe, right? Everything around us need to be balanced, and you realize that the one of the biggest problem we have in this our world today is that the misbalance of the imbalance, sorry, it's a misbalance, the imbalance, that's my new word, the imbalance of the spirit and the ego. What happened is that as human we lean so much to the ego that we become very selfish, very divided, very competitive amongst each other. And the ego loves that, right? The ego feels like it is me and me alone, right? So he sees everybody else around it as competition. Now, when you get to understand the ego from a spiritual perspective, everything changes. You start to realize that there are two of you, right? There is the essence, the astral, and which is the God essence, and there is the ego again, which is the material, right? Which is built for survival. And let's just be very clear also that, and this is a topic for another time, that right when they say your consciousness, the brain produces consciousness, that's nonsense, right? Consciousness is completely independent of the brain, right? So if consciousness is totally independent of the brain, it means the consciousness is the soul, and the brain is more associated with the ego, right? So in spirituality, and doing meditation, and I know for most people meditation is hard. It was hard for me in the beginning. Like every morning I wake up, I do my meditation, and if I don't do it, I can feel a difference in my body. And in meditation, you really start to realize, and when you start to when like I've developed many different meditation practices, and I developed them myself, right? Happy to share with you guys. Just drop in a comment and let me know if you want me to share any of the meditation practices. I'm happy to send it to you. Um, but I've developed really powerful meditational practice that allows allows it allows me to transcend the ego, right? And when I'm able to transcend the ego, I'm able to better. I'm better. I'm able to better concentrate, focus, interact, socialize, um, meditate, and stay mentally stable, right? I can easily sense out like negative energy. My intuition is a lot more higher, and when you're able to develop these abilities, you realize you start to become more and more intelligent. You start to have answers to questions that you didn't even know where it came from, right? And you just start to realize you have this newfound sense of wisdom, and that's what we call God intelligence, right? And this is because you start to see things for how it is, not for how the senses perceive it to you within the world. Um, so I could go on and on and on why I chose spirituality, why I decided to choose spirituality. And, again, the root of all of this came all the way from when I used to go to my worst days through anxiety and depression, terrible, like severe anxiety and depression. And I'm going to make a video on that the next day. But, I personally think that if more and more people start to develop their spiritual awareness, and when I say spiritual, let me be very clear. A lot of people, like, this is new age teaching, new age spirituality that people's talking about where, and most people associate spirituality with religion, where they think that if I do spirituality, it means that I can't do this, I can't have fun anymore. No, that's bull crap, man. That's bull crap. You know what I mean? Becoming spiritual means that you're able to live, you're able to live more authentically. You don't associate yourself anymore with the material world, right? So you can still have the material possessions, but you don't allow it to control you, right? You develop this sense of detachment, which is one of the core foundation of spirituality, is not allowing your soul to be attached to any kind of materialism, right? So you can have it, but it's not controlling you. And one other thing I like to say, man, is that the more you own, the more the system owns you, right? And it's so true. So in spirituality, most people think, hey man, if I develop spirituality, I gotta go live in some cave in India or something. No, man. Everybody has their own journey, right? Someone who may be spiritual may decide that, you know what works for me is to go live into a cave by myself, away from civilization, or I live off grid, completely away from society, and grow my own farm, which not a bad idea. I've been thinking about that myself actually. um, but everybody's on their own journey. You choose what's right for you. You choose what's best for you. What's most important is that if you want to practice spirituality and you also want to be a part of society, understand that when I say a part of society, meaning that you still want to, chase money, you still want to get wealthy, you still want to have the nice cars, big houses, and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And in Sanskrit, it talks about that as well. This is another form of love. Sorry, guys, I had some banging here. I don't know what it is. Interesting. Um, it's another in Sanskrit. When I was talking about the different form of love, this is another form of love too, and this is one of the love that is very common, and I can't remember the name of it. Please forgive me. But what it talks about is the love for like material possessions, right? So what you do is that you love the materials, and you have this what is called this non-reciprocity. I can't remember the non-reciprocity type of love, right? Where you love your car so much like you do anything for this car, but the car doesn't really love you back, right? It's not loyal to you or anything, right? So you got to be careful. And this is the thing with most material objects, right? You chase for money. um yeah, you chase this big house, this job, all of that stuff, thinking it all loves you, but it's not reciprocated, right? So it doesn't really love you. You understand what I'm saying? And that's why Chris is suffering, because you keep chasing the money, chasing this materialism, not understanding that the love is not reciprocated, right? So, for example, a love for a pet, right, like a dog or a cat, right? That's different, right? So that's a different. And the Sanskrit, in terms of defining love, it talks about that kind of love. It talks about the love that you have for a child, the love that you have for a mom has towards a child. It talks about the love that you have in terms of friendship. Like, for example, a regular relationship, most people say, well, I have a relationship, I love him and he's love me. No, it's not that simple. In a relationship, they're different. It has to be. Now, all relationship has this, but there's different forms of love in a relationship. There's the one that I call karma. There's one where you have a sense of friendship. That's a different kind of love, where you're in love, but you're like best friends. And there's the other one where you're like in love with this person. And if that's this individual in a relationship, they're responsible for, teaching you a lot of things, and you look up to them and you admire them and so forth. You see them like this teacher to you. That's a different form of love, and that can be expressed in relationships as well. And the more forms of love you have in a relationship, is the stronger the bond will be. So I recommend anyone, please go check out the different forms of love according to Sanskrit, right? You will get so much, it will blow your mind, and you will start asking, how the hell did I not know this, right? How the hell can we put one word on such a complex emotion? So also there's a love for the divine, right? When you're in a meditation and you feel a sense of bliss, and you say, I can't explain it, right? It's because if you use the term love, most people say, well, I don't understand, because if you love me and in a relationship, then that love is different. No, these are different forms of love. This is why it's so hard for people to explain when they say that they have this sense of bliss and love that they've never felt before with the divine. It is true because there's no word in English to ever to describe that sense of love. I've had that experience, and this is why most people say, "Hey, I can't explain it to you. You have to just experience it yourself," and it's true. So in spirituality, it helps you talk. It helps you with authenticity. It helps you um, really just live in your life and understand that this is not the end, right? That for me was very important. That this is not the end. That we're all here for an experience, and that everyone is going through their own experiences, right? Like I used to be a very judgmental person. I used to judge. I mean, very judgmental, right? And I think I really believe this was the reason why anxiety ended up came back and attacking me. It was my own mind attacking me, right? And that really changed me. Now I work around and I look at everyone, man, and even my friends are like, yo, they can't believe this is the same person. Like I judge nobody because I realized that, from my spiritual development and my own experience and what I've read and collaborate, that when I judge you, all I'm doing is judging myself, right? I judge you based on how I feel. And what's happening is that that's coming back. If I judge you, that feeling of judgment, negative energy comes right back at me 10 times. And that's true. Okay? So, and again, I don't judge people because I don't want it come back to me, and that's obviously one of the reasons. But I do realize that we're all on our own spiritual journey, and that we are all independent souls, and that there's a reason why you were born in this world by yourself, and when you leave, you're leaving by yourself. You see, nature it gives you clues. You just have to open your eyes and observe. Well, then again, I say there's no use. The eyes are useless if the mind is blind. The eyes are useless if the mind is blind. So I can show you, for example, I speak Spanish, right? Also, for most of y'all didn't know. So I speak Spanish, and I could write something down in Spanish for those of you, the audience who doesn't speak Spanish. And I'll say, what does this mean? And you're like, I don't know. But somebody who knows Spanish will be able to say, oh, it means this, right? Now, both of you both have eyes. The difference is one has their mind open, and one I've learned how to read the language, and the other one hasn't. So when the universe sends you signs, right, and signals, it's hard for you to read them if the mind doesn't know how to read the signals. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, if you observe the universe, it gives you clues, but you gotta learn how to read them. And to read them, you gotta open up your mind. You gotta learn what those clues are, right? And if you notice that when we all came into this world, we came in by yourself. When we leave by yourself. So what does that tell you? That tells you that each one of our souls is independent. We're all going through our own personal journey. If you came into this, even twins, they don't born at the same time. They may born like a minute or 30 seconds from each other. And even when they're born, they grow together, two separate consciousness, two separate qualities. They may dress the same clothes and anything, but it doesn't matter. So we're all going on our own personal journey. Even the relationship I share with my wife, I tell her, like, listen, we may be husband and wife on the material level, but I am my own independent, free soul, and I'm going to express my soul how I choose. Because at the end of the day, when I go on that bed and I go for my life review and look at my life review and say, hey, did I live a full, complete life? I can't look and say, hey, I didn't live it because my wife didn't make me live it. No, and my wife agrees with me 100%, because she's also spiritual, that we all has to express our soul and our soul desires how we want. And this is one of the reasons, this is one of the biggest issue why most diseases are created. Disease happen within the body. It's because we cannot live to our authentic self. We feel all of these expressions trapped up, and it creates blockage within our energy centers, right? And that eventually start manifests as disease. That's the body says, hey, knock, hey, dude. Hey, I'm gonna say dude, right? Hello, hey. There's something wrong here. You need to live yourself. You need to live authentically, right? So spirituality is powerful, man. It's deep. It's powerful. It's a rabbit hole. I've been going down that rabbit hole a long time. For me, I'm a curious guy anyway, so I like going down it. Did I find the end of it? To be honest, the rabbit hole goes like this, and then it comes right back, and then it goes like this. So it goes like this. So you kind of end up going in circles, right? Um, but at the end of it, what I learned through that rabbit hole, even though it may be like this, that is, it's all connected, man. It's all connected. You know what I mean? That what we've been looking for, starting from here, right, going down the rabbit hole, was all in unison at all this time. It comes right back to you. All you pick up going through all of these or information that comes right back to you. So, if you're not in spirituality, um, and as you can look around and see what's happening in society, I encourage you to look into it. I'm not saying you should hop in it, jump in it, accept anything. I encourage you to do your thorough research. Um, I look around and see people going into a silent depression in their mind. On the outside, they have a smile on their face, but on the inside, if you look into their eyes, I even just say hello. A lot of people these days broken, man, and it's sad, and I'm saddened to see that. I'm saddened to see that, and if this video can help you in some way, some form, to help find peace within your life, help find balance and love within you once more time without needing to depend on somebody else, I encourage you to look into spirituality. I really do. The journey in the beginning may be confusing. You may get a lot of opinions from different sides. I say take the time to learn. Don't jump into anything. Don't rush into anything. Just take the time to learn. Discover who you are. Because at the end of it, you're gonna realize the answers all been inside of you. I never knew what that meant. The Bible said it, and everybody's been saying it. The answer is in you. I'm like, it's in me. I can't find it. Where the hell is it? But you will know. And if this video showed up to you today, it means that you are meant to find it. And I plan to provide light in this world. I plan to shine my light, because since I've been in the spiritual part, I've had so much love that I want to share with the world to uplift this vibration. So, hey man, if this video really resonate with you, just do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. It would really help me a lot. That's all I'm asking. And if you want to hear more message in the future like this, please subscribe, and I'll do my best to put more messages out like this. All right, so until then, may the God in you go with you. Take care, guys.